By hearing the sound of the pure devotee. Just hearing the sound, one becomes purified. Especially it is mentioned in the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of the material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears a powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up to that moment he had forgotten everything. So Srila Prabhupada, that was his mission, was to wake up everybody all over the world. There was no discrimination in this respect. Prabhupada said, he explains discrimination. Materially there is distinction, but when you come to the spiritual platform, then when you discern the spirit soul within everyone, that is equal. That is just like you are differently dressed in red shirt. I am differently, this dress, this difference must be there. There are so many men and women, they are differently dressed, but you cannot say they are all equal by the dress. But within the dress, the living entities, they are all the same. We make this distinction material, not spiritual. So everybody was invited to hear Srila Prabhupada all over the world, not only then when Prabhupada was physically present, but even now, 50 years later, because people are reading Prabhupada's words. And by reading such words, they are becoming self-realized, realizing they're not this body, that they're spirit soul. So that is the transcendental voice of the pure devotee. It is so powerful that it wakes up the living entity, the sleeping living entity, who identifies himself with this body. So Prabhupada, he is still the Acharya of the entire ISKCON movement, which is all over the world. And people are still becoming benefited by his transcendental words through the sound. Now Prabhupada, he gives two kinds of, there are two kinds of Sankirtan. And so, what are those two kinds? So Prabhupada, he says, I had it here. Explain temporary spiritual. Well, he gives two kinds of kirtan. One is the Sankirtan, which is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then he gives another kind of Sankirtan, which is his books, because he read his books. He did not write his books, so that is also Sankirtan. Prabhupada calls his books spoken kirtan. And here is the quote. This is actually, in 1974, Brahmananda became the sort of permanent secretary of Srila Prabhupada, because at that time most of the secretaries didn't want to stay more than 2 or 3 months. And the society had become so huge, there were many questions and answers on business problems, because Prabhupada was maintaining financially the entire ISKCON society by properties, printing books. So he had Brahmananda reply many of the letters in this way. And Prabhupada would sign, Brahmananda would take notes, and then Prabhupada would sign seen, and then initial by hand. Many of the newsletters, many newsletters were being sent to presidents and GBC, because Prabhupada was still traveling as Parabhrikacharya. He said the stage of Parabhrikacharya is to travel and preach. But he said even if one is Paramhansa, such as Srila Prabhupada, he will also travel and preach from time to time. But Prabhupada was doing it constantly, traveling and preaching. So this newsletter came out explaining about book distribution and kirtana, of chanting of the Hare Krishna, the distinction or the oneness between the two. So Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada has said that book distribution is more important than street chanting. Book distribution is Brihat Kirtana. We've always heard Brihat Mridanga, but now we're calling it Brihat Kirtana. It is literally Kirtana in the sense that the books are spoken, and therefore anyone who reads a book is hearing. Because his books are recorded and transcribed, Srila Prabhupada calls his books spoken kirtanas, or recorded chanting. So book distribution is also kirtana, and should not be considered less than kirtana. You see? The reason book distribution is greater than chanting is because the effect is wider. A purchased book goes into a person's home and will be read by others, whereas street kirtana only benefits those in the vicinity who hear. 2 cases are cited. In Portugal, one boy who is only 11 years old has become a devotee. He offers prasadam and is translating Bhagavad-Gita as it is into Portuguese with the help of his mother. He got several of our books at a bookstore in Lisbon and has asked his father, who is just now coming to USA, to get him all available Srimad Bhagavatams. See, this is the power of book distribution. Apparently, he didn't come in contact with any devotees, but he became a devotee by just reading Prabhupada's books. That's why Prabhupada emphasized book distribution, because a person will become Krishna conscious by simply hearing the transcendental sound of Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada remarks that our books went there to Portugal, but we did not. But still he has become a devotee. Then in Tokyo airport, Prabhupada tells how one Japanese youth approached Srila Prabhupada and asked if he could speak with Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada said yes, the boy asked, "Where do you get all the knowledge that is in your books?" So by comparative study, book selling is more important. Srila Prabhupada also pointed out that in the West, sometimes the street chanting is considered as a farce. Also in India, At first, street chanting was tried, but was met with mostly derogatory reaction, especially in India, because of the film Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Everybody thought we were taking drugs and doing illicit sex, because that's how the devotees were portrayed. And so, of course, the mantra became famous, but they would laugh at us when we would chant in the street. They didn't take us seriously. Therefore, there is mostly life membership preaching in India, which is, of course, book distribution. But on no account should street chanting be stopped. Prabhupada has never said that street chanting should be stopped, because some of the temples, they stopped street chanting and they would just distribute books. The chanting can go on for a little while, and when a crowd is drawn, books can be distributed. When I mentioned to Srila Prabhupada that when in LA last, there was the system of book distribution all week long, and on weeknights, full kirtan, street kirtans, he said that was a good system. Actually, in Los Angeles, when I was president, we inaugurated speaking from Prabhupada's books while people were taking prasadam. In other words, no devotee took prasadam when the guests took prasadam. Everybody would go out with a different book and sit with a group of guests and preach while the guests were eating prasadam. So they were hearing kirtan from Prabhupada from the books as they were eating prasadam. So they were getting the benefit of kirtana by way of the devotee preaching from the books and getting benefit from taking prasadam at the same time. Then after all the guests left, there was the devotees would take their prasadam. That is real seva. Not that we become greedy and eat all the prasadam before the guests, like I used to do. I used to have the cook save 75 samosas, and I used to eat all of them at one sitting and dip them in sour cream. You know, that's how I stayed Krishna conscious, by eating samosas. So anyway, this was a good program, and Prabhupada, he liked that program, that devotees would take their prasadam after the guests, and they would preach from his books while the guests were sitting. And from that, after about 2 or 3 weeks, because we do this on Sundays, people would actually become devotees from that process. They would join and become devotees, just from the prasadam and from hearing Prabhupada's books at the same time. So this is a good system. Regarding the claim that devotees have difficulties maintaining Krishna consciousness by only doing book selling with not enough street chanting, Prabhupada remarked that if things deteriorate, that is another thing. But it is not the fault of book distribution. Book distribution must not be neglected. And it's signed, initialed. So there are various, in 1974, there were many of these newsletters going out because there was 108 centers, and Prabhupada wanted to maintain the standard of each center by way of book distribution, kirtan, following even to the GBC members. Every letter that went to the GBC, he emphasized the rules and regulations of book distribution. This is very important. So what I want to play is a little clip. I call them preaching clips, and they deal with a different point. And so this point I want to mention is called Devotees Welcome Danger.
Nrsimhadev is dangerous to Hiranyakashipu. And he is the supreme friend to Prahlad Maharaj, the same personality. Similarly, God is never dangerous to the devotee. Devotee is never afraid of danger. He is confident that the danger that is another feature of God. So why shall I be afraid? I am surrendered to Him. So Kunti Devi says that Vipada Santu Ta Sassat, because she knows how to remember Krishna at times of danger. She is welcoming danger. My dear Lord, I welcome such dangers when I can remember you. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he was always thinking of Krishna when his father was putting him in dangerous position. So, if you are put into the dangerous position, and if that dangerous position gives an impetus to remember Krishna, that is welcome. That is welcome. Oh, I am getting this opportunity of remembering Krishna. So how it is welcome? It is welcome because seeing Krishna means I am advancing in my spiritual life so that I will not have to suffer any more of this dangerous position. Takta deham punarjanma naiti mameti kunti. If you become advanced in Krishna consciousness, then the result will be, after giving up this body, Krishna says, Takta deham, after giving up this body, punarjanma naiti, you don't take birth again in this material world. That is wanted. Suppose I am very comfortable at the present moment. My body is kept in a very comfortable position. But there is death and there is another birth. So after giving up this body, if I get the body of a cat and dog, then what is the meaning of this comfortable position? Because death is sure. And janmantram, tatha dehantaram. Dehantaram means you have to accept another body. If you do not know what kind of body you are going to get, you can know it. That is stated in the Shastra, that if you have got such and such mentality, you get such and such body. So, in a comfortable position, if I keep myself in the dog's mentality, then I am going to get my next life as dog. Then what?
So these are little clips that I make that give a very important instruction that we should all remember. That a devotee is not afraid of danger at any time. You see, Prahlad was not scared. Actually, Prabhupada gives a very advanced reason for Nrsimhadev to appear. Everybody thinks that Nrsimha appeared to save Prahlad. But actually that is not the fact. The fact is, the matter is, Prahlad was already being saved without the appearance of Nrsimhadev. Because Prahlad was thrown off the cliff, put in boiling oil, so many things. But Nrsimha wasn't physically present. So why did Nrsimhadev appear? Does anyone know the answer? Why did Nrsimhadev have to appear at that time?
Just to make Prahlad Maharaj's words true that he is in the
Why?
We didn't want Prahlad Maharaj words to be untrue.
No, but as a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere, not only in the pillar. Why didn't he jump out of someplace else? There's another reason why. You got to take the microphone. Because what happens, Parvati will call and she'll scream at me. She wants to hear the questions and answers from the assembled devotees too. Not just me, not just my big mouth. She wants to hear from the others. So yes, what is the answer?
Maybe the Lord wants to glorify his devotee.
Yeah, he wants to glorify, but there's another reason. A more particular reason. Because the Lord is always glorified. Prahlad in his classes, he was always glorifying the Lord to his students in class. You see? So there's another particular reason why Nrsimha particularly appeared in the column. Yes, speak in the microphone.
To fulfill the blessing of Lord Brahma.
To what?
To fulfill the blessing of Lord Brahma.
Well, that's one of the reasons.
Because otherwise, how we can be killed?
But there's another important reason, meant for the atheistic class. That's a hint. Because most of the people in this Kali Yuga are atheists. So there's another reason why Nrsimhadev appeared. Yes, speak in the mic.
Because Prahlad Maharaj was looking at the column and the Hiranyakashipu asked him, is your master is there? Prahlad Maharaj said, yes. So to prove his statement right, he appeared from the column.
And why? There's a reason why. Prabhupada says that Nrsimha, when Prahlad looked at the column and Nrsimhadev and Hiranyakashipu marked that, he says, your Lord is in the column? And Prahlad said, yes. The actual reason for Nrsimhadev appearing was to show the atheistic class that God is in everything. And he can appear in any form, at any time, in any place, simply by his will. You see? Because in the Shastra, when the Lord appears, it gives the place, the time, his mother's name, his father's name, so many indications. But with Nrsimhadev, there was no indication. It doesn't mention his father's name or the mother's name or when or where. He simply appeared. And that was to show the atheist class that God is in everything, even in the pillar. He can be any place. He can be in the chair. He can appear anywhere according to his own free will, because he is the Lord of the universe. So he wanted to show the atheistic class that you cannot avoid God in any circumstance. And you can make any deal you want with any demigod to become immortal, but actually not in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot become immortal. And therefore, Nrsimhadev appeared just actually to nullify Brahma's mercy, where he couldn't be killed at a certain time or a certain place between nighttime or daytime, but he was killed at the time of dusk, which is between the two. So the Lord didn't break any of the promises, and that is according to the Supreme Lord's will, that he can still destroy any demon at his own free will. Nobody has the power to destroy the Supreme Lord or his devotee. Therefore, in the Bhagavad-Gita, he has Arjuna to declare it to the world that my devotee will never be vanquished. And why didn't the Lord say it himself? Why did he have his devotees say?
Because Krishna sometimes breaks his own promises.
And where did he do that?
In case of Krishna Vrindavan, when he attacked.
Well, by the fact of the matter, he promised he wouldn't take part in the field of Kurukshetra. But what did he do? He became the charioteer driver for Arjuna. He became subservient to his pure devotee. See? So that makes him, where is it in any book of knowledge where God becomes the servant of his devotee? That's why Prabhupada says, don't be concerned with seeing God, do something so that God comes to see you. Do some service, and the Supreme Lord will appear for you. Just like Prabhupada said that when he was on the ship, there was nobody there when he got his 3 heart attacks. You see, he got 2 heart attacks and he was all alone. But he said, I saw that Krishna was with me. Therefore I crossed the ocean. He knew he was being protected by Krishna. Therefore he wasn't fearful. That's why it was predicted that he would cross the ocean because of the name he was given. Abhay means to not fear death. And Prabhupada had no fear of death. That's why at the age of 70 he crossed the ocean. And he saw that Krishna was with me. He saw him with his own eyes. So that is the prediction that the pure devotee is always protected by the Lord. Prahlad is always protected, even though the Lord may not be physically present. He was always being protected, but he appeared just to counteract the atheistic class. That there is no God. I am God. I am immortal. And the Lord appeared, and within a few seconds he broke the back of Hiranyakashipu and pulled out his heart. You see, with great ease, very easily done. You see, so this is a little clip that gives a good instruction. Every week, time I speak, I'm going to show a little clip, so you'll get a good instruction from Prabhupada's lecture, because they're full of instructions. So now we have the meaning of Sankirtan. So I'm going to go to the short instructions that Prabhupada gives, which we can discuss. Here he talks, deities are satisfied with bhakti, not marble. Therefore try to increase the bhakti. Somebody wanted to put marble, but they didn't have the money. So Prabhupada said, then don't overdo this. Simply increase the bhakti and the marble will come by itself. You see? So deities are satisfied with bhakti, not marble. See, there's always some instruction in Prabhupada's letters. These all come from letters from 1973 and 74. Then someone is lamenting about how big or small their center is. And so Prabhupada said, there is no question of bigness or smallness of the center, so far pleasing me is concerned. It is the sincerity of the attempt that is the important thing. Of course, as Krishna sees the sincerity of our hearts, he supplies the facilities. Just like I came to your country with only 40 rupees, and now we have got this huge institution. So you can be sure that Krishna will supply you according to your capacity. So I think that if you continue working sincerely, you will get all the facilities that you require for your purposes. Simply, we have to be sincere. In any service, whether we're sowing flowers, or we're doing arti, or book distribution, or managing, whatever service we're doing, the sincerity of purpose should be there. You see? Not that we're thinking about our salaries. That is not sincerity of purpose. In fact, I can give you a personal example. When Prabhupada made me the first treasurer of ISKCON, he wanted me to formulate different categories of accounts. In other words, he wanted to know which each department was spending. So he had me create the different activities. I had to use my brain. So I knew there's the kitchen account. So that's one department. So I wrote down kitchen department. Then there's the art department, because Jodharani was painting. He wanted to know how much Jodharani was spending on her art, making the paintings. Then there was the one account I left out, which he said I should add, called devotee maintenance account. That means Prabhupada was concerned with the maintenance of the devotees. And he wanted to know how much maintenance was being spent on each devotee. You see? And so there were about 20 or 25 different accounts, you see. And so Prabhupada, in the ledger, at the end of the month, he would see how much Jodharani spent, how much Kirtanananda spent, how much was spent on devotees, and for what purposes. You see, but there was no question of salaries. That means the temple is supposed to give whatever maintenance is possible to the devotee to maintain the body and soul. You see, we have to eat properly. We have to get vitamins from our foods. Everything should be to come perfectly. Wear nice clothes for the public, nice saris, nice dhotis. I know in LA, we had 150 devotees living in the temple. And everybody looked very clean and nice, especially during the times when Prabhupada was present. One who was the president, he didn't want any complaints to go to Prabhupada, because then Prabhupada would chastise him. So we were very careful to make sure every devotee had everything possible so they wouldn't go directly to Prabhupada and complain, oh, I am not getting this, I'm not getting that. You see? So we should, those who are managers should have that consciousness, because Prabhupada is sitting right there. And somebody may go and complain to Prabhupada, they're not giving me proper food. Or I have dirty dress, they won't buy a dhoti for me. He's sitting there. He's not dead. That deity is not dead. This is Prabhupada's how we're glorifying Prabhupada right here. You see? That's why I'm not concerned whether one person comes or no person comes. Because actually, I'm not doing this for the people attending. I am preaching Prabhupada's glory so Prabhupada is hearing. Because Prabhupada, that's what he would ask. Whenever someone, a devotee would come, he would ask, the first thing he would say, what is your report? So I'm giving every day, 3 days a week, my report to Srila Prabhupada, who's sitting right next door. So that is my impetus for coming. Of course, if you come and get the benefit of hearing about Prabhupada's transcendental glories, then you get the benefit also. We all get the benefit. But my impetus is to please Srila Prabhupada, who's sitting in this house right now, listening to what I say. You see, I'm very conscious of this. We should also be conscious because Prabhupada is here with us. So whatever service we're doing, we should be conscious that I'm trying to please the Acharya, who's the most intimate representative of Krishna. Because if he's satisfied, then Krishna is satisfied. And if Krishna is satisfied, then Krishna reveals himself from within as Techa Guru. So it all depends on our sincerity of purpose, that is stated here. Krishna doesn't look at the result. That stays with Krishna. Whether you succeed or fail is with Krishna. Simply, he looks at the sincerity of your purpose of serving Krishna. Whether you're thinking of the service to make it perfect, or whether you're thinking of your salary that you get at the end of the month. You look at your watch, oh, today is the 30th. I got 5 more days to get paid. That is not bhakti. You see, Prabhupada even asked, where's the question of bhakti if people are getting paid? Then it becomes karmi work, not bhakti. You see, rather we should get our devotee maintenance so that we're fully satisfied. And that's what the managers had to do in those days when Prabhupada was present, to make sure everybody was happy and Krishna conscious, so that everybody could do Sankirtan and distribute books. You see, in this year, 1974, it was a woman who became the lead book distributor, Gauri Dasi. Does anybody remember Gauri Dasi? I don't know if she came to India. She came to India? Oh, really? She did 108 books in one day. Big books, not those 10 rupee books. She did the 400-page books in one day. She distributed. She broke the record. The all-time ISKCON record of doing book distribution, you see. And it was done by a female devotee, not a male devotee. So that happened in 1974. People were encouraged because why? They were happy and Krishna conscious. You see, they didn't worry about whether they would get good prasadam or this or that. They were happy performing their duty. And naturally, as managers, we made sure that every devotee was happy. Otherwise, how could we distribute so many books? And these books they get $10 a book, sometimes $20, sometimes $100 a book. There was no set charge. We didn't ask for 10 rupees. These book distributors would ask for a donation. And sometimes they were so expert, the man would take out his wallet and the lady would pick out the $100 bill from the wallet. And the man accepted it because he was so impressed with the preaching. They would take it right out of the wallet, and he said, that's okay. That's how powerful and potent the book distributors were in those days. They didn't settle for 10 rupees. You see? So this is the glory of the book distributors during the 70s. They were so dedicated and expert preachers because Prabhupada made it imperative that the devotees read the books. Because by reading the books, you're able to preach from your heart. And by preaching from your heart, then the person you're preaching to also becomes Krishna conscious and wants to give whatever he can give. So it's very important that we know and read the books that we're distributing, not that we simply become businessmen and distribute books, but we don't know what the books are. What if somebody asks us a question? You see? Then what we should do? You see? This happened in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta. During the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, it was asked about a Christian priest came to Vrindavan, and he asked the residents, why did Krishna dance with the gopis who were married to other husbands? And so the residents of Vrindavan could not answer. And Bhaktisiddhanta called all the residents of Vrindavan neophytes because they couldn't satisfy the answer. Even Parikshit Maharaj, he asked that question, you see. And that's why I made up a folder about pure sex philosophy. Because people think it's ordinary sex life. King Parikshit inquired to his teacher Sukadeva Goswami that Krishna is on the earth. He appeared on this earth for paritranaya sadhanana vinasaya cha duskrikinam dharma samasta parthayaya. Dharma samasta paranathya, just to establish the process of religiosity. And in India at least, still the Vedic principle is that a lady or a girl who is especially married or unmarried, she cannot mix with any other men. So that is against religious principles. So this question was raised that these girls who were already married, how they went to Krishna for dancing with him, and how Krishna allowed them to dance with him, because it's against religious principles, and Krishna comes to establish Dharma. This question was raised by Parikshit Maharaj. Of course, you cannot imagine that a girl going to a friend and dancing with him. That is not against religious principles, but according to Vedic principles, this is irreligious. So this was questioned by Maharaj Parikshit to Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami replied in many ways. But the summary is that how this can be impure. So what do you think as an audience? What is the answer? No, take the microphone. How Krishna could do that? There are many answers to this, as Prabhupada said. So what is your answer?
Gopis' spiritual bodies went to Krishna to dance.
That's one of the answers, yes. That where were their material bodies? With their husbands. Okay, that's one answer. There's another answer. Take the mic.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Actually, gopis were not ordinary girls. They were Rishi Munis from previous births who had done a lot of tapasya, and that is why they were dancing with Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord, who is again not ordinary man, but he is the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
So this was something which was not irreligious, but it was they were Rishi and Munis from previous births.
Very good.
It was above the Vedic principles.
That's another good answer. And what about Krishna?
Hare Krishna. Actually, Gopi was Siddhas. They came from Krishna. Both Ved Kirja, they were Ved Kirja, Sadhan Siddhas.
Yeah, that's this young lady has said. But what about Krishna? What's the answer? Why did Krishna dance? We know about the gopis now. But what about Krishna? How old was Krishna?
Krishna was only 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, so how could he think of having sex?
Because so every day when Aditi actually is.
Yeah, there's the.
Krishna is the only husband every day when Aditi.
Yes, actually, Prabhupada used this. There is a very nice discussion on the train to Allahabad to the Kumbh Mela in 1970, I think 2 or 3, between Rameshwar and Prabhupada, called Pure Sex Philosophy. And so we're going to discuss this. How Prabhupada defeats the Christians in their attempt to criticize Krishna. So Rameshwar says, then this reverend from the Lutheran Church, he said that we have invented this Krishna religion. He said that Krishna is an ordinary man who is a sex symbol, having so many women, gopis, wives, 16,000 wives, and that we are saying that he is God. And this is hearsay, means against the principles of God. Hearsay means against the principle. He told us a concoction. So he was defeated in different ways also. This is Rameshwar talking. And at the end, he had to admit that the only way to find out if you buy their books. So everyone go buy their books and see for yourself. This is what the Christian priest said. But then Prabhupada says no. He says no. Prabhupada has a different perspective. He said even taking it that Krishna is after sex, then if sex is bad, then why you are after sex? If sex is bad, then why you are after sex? So the whole world is going on after sex. How can you deny it? And Rameshwar says, he says that sex is not for God. And Prabhupada says, why? If sex is not there in God, then how it comes? If God created everything, so God did not create sex? See, Prabhupada's defeating every answer, every comment by Rameshwar. You see? So, Rameshwar says, they think it means we are saying God has a material body because they associate sex with the material body. And Prabhupada says, material body has no sex. A dead man does not enjoy sex. Do you think that a dead man enjoys sex? Suppose a beautiful girl, dead. Will you accept her for sex? Then why do you take that sex is for the body? Sex is for the material body is not the fact. When the soul is not there, where is the sex? Rameshwar. Well, they consider sex to be his lower nature, animal nature. And Prabhupada says, no. Everything becomes animal nature when it is perverted, when it is contaminated. And Rameshwar says, they do not have any conception of the positive. And Prabhupada answers, huh? Rameshwar, they have no conception of pure life, so they think that it's just, and Prabhupada cuts them off and says, if they have no conception, we should give them conception. That when the body is dead, decomposed, then where is the sex? Where is the inclination? Similarly, the soul originally, as is said in the Vedanta Sutra that everything is coming from Brahman, Ato Brahma Ginasya. Now let us talk about Brahman. This is the meaning of Ato Brahma Ginasya. The next verse is Sutra Code, Janamiyasya Yataha. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, Aham Sarvasa Prabhuyo. So unless sex comes from God, it may be perverted in the material world. That is another thing. But originally, pure sex must be there in God. Otherwise, how it comes? Everything is emanated from the Supreme. Janmiyasa Yataha. So how can you say there is no sex? Vishwanath Chakravarti Das Thakur explains that Janmiyasa Adirasa. Adirasa means sex enjoyment. So he has explained that sex has come from Krishna. Because we have used perverted sex, we have got a very bad idea. But actually sex is there in the original. Otherwise, there is no question of Madhura Rasa, Haladini Shakti. There is no question of sex. You do not understand absolute. The opposition party, but sex is originally from Brahman. That is a fact. So Rameshwar says, his argument is that when Krishna was here, he was having friendship with the gopis who were married to other men. Prabhupada said yes. And Rameshwar says, this is immoral. Prabhupada says yes. And Rameshwar says, God never acts in immoral ways. Prabhupada says, so that you have made immoral. Because if he is the proprietor, then he is the proprietor of everything. You have accepted one woman who belongs to Krishna, and you are immoral. He is the original proprietor of everything, and everything belongs to him. But he has given you one woman, Tena Taktena. But no woman belongs to you. So you should stop connection with woman. It is immoral. He turns the whole thing around and says we're immoral because everything belongs to Krishna. Even your wife is Krishna's property. So Prabhupada very intelligently turns the whole argument against the other person. That you're the immoral one, not God. See, Prabhupada's very intelligent. Oh, I went too far ahead. Because he is the proprietor, then he is the proprietor of everything. You have accepted one woman who belongs to Krishna. You are immoral. He is the original proprietor of everything, and everything belongs to him. But he has given you one woman, Tiena Taktena, but no woman belongs to you. So you should stop connection with women. It is immoral. Otherwise, every woman belongs to Krishna. How you can use Krishna's property? This is the disease, that we are trying to enjoy Krishna's property. Krishna is the proprietor. Bhaktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarva. He's the Bhakta. He's the enjoyer. How can you enjoy Krishna's property? That is immoral. And therefore you shall be punished. And you are being punished because we are encroaching upon Krishna's property illegally. Therefore we are suffering. Krishna is moral. You are immoral. You are utilizing unauthorizedly using Krishna's property. Rameshwar. He won't give up, Rameshwar. His argument was that if God comes to this world and displays activities with women, it is natural that the followers of the religion will also want to have affairs with women. Prabhupada says, no, because you have not studied Krishna, they misunderstand in that way. You are fond of woman. Krishna comes to show you that in Vaikuntha Golok, Vrindavan, there is woman, but not in this way. Originally there is. That is pure. So it requires education. You are not educated. You cannot talk. Now sex, even in the material existence, we find that by sex many great men have been. So how you can accuse sex? You are talking. We should say you are a product of sex. So how can you say that sex is bad? Even the Christian man, he comes from sex. So that means he's bad too, as Prabhupada is saying. Why do you criticize sex if you're a product of sex? You see? See, Prabhupada defeats everybody. Rameshwar. They say that when one man has many different women, then that is immoral. Prabhupada says no. First of all, answer. Suppose you are a very big man, but you are a product of sex. Are you born differently or through sex? What is the answer? And Rameshwar says sex. Yes, sex is not bad. When it is misused, that is the defect. Otherwise, sex is not bad. Rameshwar. The Western conception is that one man can only have one woman. Prabhupada says, why? If he can produce many big men, he can have hundreds of women. But you cannot do that. Therefore, you are restrained. You are bad. You better restrain. Don't have sex, because you'll produce cats and dogs. But one who is able to produce great brain, great philosophers, he should produce hundreds. You do not know how to produce good brain. Therefore, you stop. Don't produce cats and dogs. For you, it is stop. You do not know how to use sex. Therefore, you should stop. You should not have any more use sex. But one who can produce better brain should have hundreds of times. You must know how to produce. That is Vedic civilization. Dharma samskara idam. It is not a secret how to produce brain. And because brain is not produced, therefore there is agitation. But they have no brain. They do not know how the value of this Krishna conscious movement. You have been produced like cats and dogs. Therefore you cannot appreciate. Therefore you should stop. But one who has the power to produce brain, to produce Krishna conscious children, they should use. Foodstuff is forbidden for a person who cannot digest. But one who can digest food, he must eat sumptuously. There is no restriction for him. Food is not bad. One who cannot digest, it is bad for him. That is the conclusion. What is food for one is poison for another. If you cannot use sex power, how to use it for better purposes, you should not use sex. You see? Prabhupada is very intelligent. He defeats everybody, even on the controversial subject matter of sex life. That is an acharya, that he can take any subject, material or spiritual, and defeat his opponent. Prabhupada did that with the book called Dialectic Spiritualism, where he takes 30 of the most advanced philosophers in the world and defeats every one of them, although he never studied their philosophy. That's the brain of an acharya, you see. He even agreed with someone. One of them is Sigmund Freud, who analyzed sex, and his conclusion is sex is the motivation for this whole world. And Prabhupada said, yes, he is right. On others, he disagreed. On others, he agreed. You see? You should read that book. It shows the power of the acharya, that he can defeat any opposing elements on any subject matter, not just the Vedas, but on any subject, because that's one of the qualifications of a pure devotee, that he's expert in every philosophy, in everything. He knows everything. He taught me how to keep books. I was 18 years old only. How to do debit, credit, ledger book. And that's a material subject matter. So how did he know all this? Because he's expert in everything. He even showed us how to clean a floor the Indian way. You know, your Indian women know how. You get on your knees with a bucket and a rag, and on your knees you clean the floor. We didn't know how to do that. In my country, no one did get on their hands and knees. We just swept it with a broom. We thought that was clean. But water is the purifying agent. So Prabhupada in Los Angeles, because we had tiles on the floor, we didn't know how to clean the floor. There were stains all over. So Prabhupada got on his hands and knees with a bucket with water, and he showed us how to clean the tiles so there were no stains. So he's expert even in cleaning floors. That's an acharya, you see. He doesn't care. Who would do that? What acharya would get on his hands and knees and clean a floor? That's the job of a sweeper. But one who's a pure devotee, he doesn't discriminate. He teaches by example. You see, he says example is better than precept. Anybody can say anything. I am this, I am that, I am pure devotee, I can do this. But that is, precept doesn't prove anything. What proof is by your example, how you live. You see, I lived with Prabhupada. I had my office in his room. I watched him do his translation work with his 2 index fingers typing. We ate with him in his apartment every day. I could see there was absolutely no hypocrisy in any way in what he preached and how he lived. There was no hypocrisy, you see. That's an acharya. He doesn't show any hypocrisy. And his door was always open. He was always accessible at all the time, you see. Because he loved to preach to his devotees, and the devotees liked to be with him and hear his preaching. That's an acharya. He always is engaged in preaching Krishna conscious on any subject. He taught me the history of World War II. He taught me the whole history of Indian civilization, from the Mughals down to the Britishers. Because I didn't know. I never went to college. He taught me everything material and spiritual. That's an acharya. He's expert in all kinds of knowledges. You see, you can't find such a person in this world as Srila Prabhupada. You see, you can look and look and look, you won't find a person so expert in everything. You see, that's why devotees have come to this movement, because when they read his books, they see that this personality, this great personality, is expert in all kinds of knowledge. He gives such descriptive knowledge that even the simplest person who's uneducated can understand. Therefore, in Mayapur, there was a conversation in Prabhupada's room with his devotees that many scholars called him the incarnation of Vedavyas. The incarnation of Vedavyas, because he simplified the Vedas for the next 10,000 years, for those who are chandalas, dog eaters, insect eaters. Yeah, in China they eat the insects, I saw on the street. They take the big grasshoppers and they fry them, and then they eat them with rice. I saw that. I saw them in Thailand. They keep the light on purpose so the insects come, then they sweep them up and fry them. So Prabhupada came to translate and simplify the Vedas for the insect eaters, for the Chinamen, and for the Chandalas, for the lowest of mankind. You see? Therefore, he's the incarnation of Vedavyas. You see? And Prabhupada agreed with that statement. He said, yes, people have said. So he agreed with that. Because he did. And his books are the law books for the next 10,000 years. He said it himself. You see? On this question of sex, Brahmananda and I wrote, recently on a tape we heard you describing the nature of the soul with an analogy to sex. You explained that a covering or a condom is used during sex. The condom is not much enjoyed. However, because it reduces pleasure. So scientists invented the pill. Now, without the need of the covering, enjoyment is greater, and people are more happy. Again, you elucidated the analogy of sex by pointing out that during sex, the partner's clothes are always removed. If you want to enjoy sex, the best sex is when you take your clothes off. No one has sex while clothed. Enjoyment increases by removing the garments or the covering. Then you revealed the purport. Prabhupada has a purport for that, can you imagine? That the covering on the body is what the body is to the soul. As the body relishes without any covering, so does the soul enjoy without the body. Just see the analogy. Prabhupada's realization and how he explains it. As the body relishes without any covering, so does the soul enjoy without the body. Pure soul, the spiritual form, is the greatest delight. By associating with Lord Krishna via devotional service, we can acquire our spiritual form. When we hear that sex, the greatest elation of the body, is merely an analogy for the ecstasy of the soul, it makes us reflect upon what we have done with our lives. Your description of spiritual pleasure fascinates us. Our perpetual absorption in the body wanes, and we want to know what it is you are teaching and what you must be experiencing. You have made us want to be something of what you are. You have woken us up from the slumber of Maya. You've inspired us to crawl out of this horrible world to come and serve you on the sublime spiritual platform where you cavort with Krishna and his pleasure potencies. Your analogy is readily understandable by us Westerners, and also by newly westernized Easterners who are deeply encumbered by sex. Although previous acharyas have used the analogy of sex, none have used it in the unique way to teach Krishna consciousness. Here is another proof of your genius. We could cite scores of other examples of your brilliant preaching, but this is one we happen to appreciate recently. We are proud to have you as our spiritual master and to be your followers. We can only hope that everyone else in the world will discover what we have. You are the greatest spiritual master to have ever appeared and are worthy of being followed by all with life, soul, and love. You once wrote to me that it is not enough to only glorify you, it is more important to try to do what you are doing and try to be what you are. Teaching by example, you see. Anyone can do cheap glorification, to do obeisances and say anything. But to become what Prabhupada is, to liberate others, to preach to others, that is more important. Although it is not pleasant, we must admit our hypocrisy publicly. We fantasize about one day going back to Godhead, yet we are not liberated from the chief attraction of the material world. Help us to be free. We want to be fully absorbed in the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and only you can help us. May we humble as you always are. You told us that arrogance is the characteristic of those who have not realized themselves to be the 1/10,000th, the tip of the hair, but rather of the soul, but rather their body. This is cardinal instruction, because only the humble can efficiently chant the name of the Lord constantly. There is no other way, and this is what you have graciously and selflessly taught your servants at the Bhakti-Vedanta Library, written by Brahmananda and Garga Muni. We wrote this like 25 years ago. So still, this is our feeling, even to this day, that Prabhupada was able to preach and describe things in such a way that it would inspire us to give our lives to him and leave our material life. You see, just like the 6 Goswamis, they all came from high families. Rupa and Sanatan were kings. They were the finance ministers of the emperor. So they lived like a king, with kingly dress, kingly palace. All of the Goswamis came from very rich families. And Brahmananda and me happened to also come from a rich family. We lived in a 22-room house with a lake, swimming pool. The house was purchased from the president of General Electric. My father had 2 factories, and he purchased this house in the 1950s. But still, we gave that up. Our father wrote us out of the will. We didn't get 1 penny from our father because we picked a new father, our spiritual father, you see. And that was a better father than our material father. We gave up the material father, although he personally enticed me with many enjoyments for my body, because Prabhupada, he wanted to send me back into the fire of material existence by working for my father in his factories and learning the factories so that I could take it over and give the money to Prabhupada. So he said Samsaradava, he said the prayer, he said that the spiritual master quenches the fire of material existence, but I'm going to send you back into material existence. What guru does that? But I followed. I went back into material life to try and get my father's business so we could print books. Because this is 1966, 67. You know, in those days we didn't have any money. The Bhagavad-Gita really didn't get printed until 1968. So Prabhupada thought, if I send this boy back, and he was worried. Prabhupada wrote in a letter, he says, I'm worried about the career of this young boy. I may have ruined it by sending him back into Maya. Because my father, just like Hiranyakasipu, Prabhupada compared my father to Hiranyakasipu in the letter. He said, because he'd send me prostitutes every night to my door. They would knock on my door and say, "Your father sent me as a gift." I said, "Well, you can go back to my father. I am not interested." And then he put meat in my food secretly. He mixed beef in my food. I told Prabhupada this was going on. He said, "You tolerate like Prahlad." You see? But after a while, it became apparent that my father knew I was more or less accepting my new father as my father, and he would not have any influence over me. So he didn't allow me to learn all the secrets of his business. So I told Prabhupada, this is a useless situation. He said, "Then you come live with me, I will be your father." You see? So that's what I did. I followed. But at least I passed the test, just like Prahlad passed all his tests. And actually, he said my father will be benefited because of me joining Krishna conscious. He said, "You don't understand, but actually your father will be benefited by your devotional service. And all generations are benefited when you become Krishna conscious." So without realizing it, everybody in this room who's a devotee, they're actually benefiting generations of their family by becoming a devotee of Krishna. They're being released from all their sins. So everyone in this room is doing great service, not only for themselves, but their generations of their family. So you should be proud to be a devotee. You're the greatest welfare worker because you're helping generations of your family that you've never met to become liberated from their sins. That's the power of an acharya. He can do that. He has the power to do that. And that's why we call him the acharya. That's why we worship him as the closest representative to Krishna. We sing the song in Guru Vastakam every morning that he assists the gopis in this regard, and the Radharani in their service to Krishna. So he's the most confidential servant. Then Prabhupada, on this question, he explains real love. He says, "Simply for the sake of love, the mother loves a child. It is simply a little example. Similarly, love means if I love you, I don't want any return. Still I love you. You may ill-treat me. You may badly treat me. You may neglect me. Still I love you. There is no question of return from you. That is real love." So we should not expect anything from our devotional service. We should not expect anything material or spiritual. What does it mean by spiritual? We don't even want liberation, because in factual, we are already liberated in this body by serving Krishna. The body's already liberated because we are 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness in this temple, you see. By just being in this compound is Goloka Vrindavan. As soon as you go out of the compound, who knows? But this compound, there's devotional service, you see. That you cannot find in this material world because it is based on sense gratification. Therefore, there is love between a boy and girl, and as soon as there is a little discrepancy, there is divorce. They are separated because the whole principle was on the basis of lust. So there is no love, or we do not know what is meant by love. Love does not mean just as a boy attracted by a girl or a girl attracted by a boy. That is not love. That is sense gratification. So in the material world, there is no love. It is impossible. There is little example, just like I cited the example of mother and son or similar. That is also temporary, but real love is in the spiritual. That is Radha Krishna. That is real love. There is no separation. There is no cheating. There is no divorce. There is no sex attraction. Simply for love's sake. Loving. That is real love. You see? Prabhupada's giving us the formula, the manifesto. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for us. And he showed us by example, by treating his devotees in a loving way, because we were all very offensive to Srila Prabhupada in the old days. We used to do many offenses. Still, Prabhupada, he never rejected us. Uh-oh. No, you have to... Thank you. So, he never rejected us, even though we were very offensive. Some of us did the most horrible things, but he never rejected, he reformed. Just as Jagai and Madai did the most horrible thing. They attacked Nityananda, who's Guru Tattva, physically attacked. Blood was coming from his head. And Chaitanya wanted to do the chakra, cut their heads off. And it is only through the intervening of the Guru to remind the Lord that you have not come to kill the demons, but reform them. So similarly, although we were very offensive to Srila Prabhupada, he never rejected, he reformed, you see. And he did that, I can tell you very frankly. Many people who fell down, he said, you come live with me and I will reform you. And Prabhupada is like a touchstone. You know, when you touch it, it becomes gold. Similarly, by Prabhupada's, his effulgence, his presence, he could make you Krishna conscious. There's no other acharya in this age that has done this. And who knows if we will ever meet one again in our life. We don't know. So therefore, we should finish the business up in this lifetime and not wait for another lifetime, because you don't know when you will meet such an acharya. And everyone in this room is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. You have initiating guru, you have the seed-giving father guru, Srila Prabhupada, who even your guru is reading his books. So everybody has a connection with Prabhupada, you see. It is not that he's gone and off someplace. He's here with us. He's in the room next door. That's why I come here, because I give my report. I give my eulogies to Srila Prabhupada. Whether one person comes or no person comes, I'm not concerned with that, because I am not the loser or the gainer, because I'm glorifying my spiritual master. If somebody comes, then they can also be the gainer and become purified by hearing the glories and attributes of Srila Prabhupada and how he preached and convinced others and defeated the Mayavadis. Nirvisesha Shunyavadi, you see. He took his appearance just to defeat the Mayavadis, just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also did, and the six Goswamis. They wrote all these books not simply to tell you what gopi you are or what manjari you are. They wrote these books to defeat the Mayavadi philosophy that there is no God, or I am God, or God is imagination, you see. They do that. They think God is imagination, you see. Prabhupada said that they think that the Lord, that you can imagine that this is God, that Durga is God, that Santosh is God. Prabhupada called it department store. If you go to some temples, they got everybody there. They got Ganesh, they got Durga, they got Ram, they got Krishna, and you go to each one, and you beg something. Give me a car. And then you throw some money. Then you go to the next one. You give me a good husband or wife, and then you throw some money. That's what you do in a department store. You go around and you buy something. You give some money and you get it. So we don't believe in department stores. We worship the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the source of everything. We don't go to any department stores of these temples, as they're called Mayavadi, where they say all the gods are the same. No, we don't do that. We simply approach Krishna and we worship him without expecting anything in return, spiritual or material. That is Krishna consciousness. So to get back to some of the nice quotations of instructions that Prabhupada gave us. This is very nice. This is a book written in German, which I can't pronounce, this cultural book. It's very nicely printed, especially the picture of Krishna and his friends eating. It is very glorious. We wish to join his party. Prabhupada wants to join the party with Krishna and his friends in eating. But it requires great tapasya. For many, many lives, these boys performed tapasya to join his party and eating with him. See, this is not something you get in one lifetime. Everybody's thinking what gopi I am, what cowherd boy I am. They want to know. And they get the cheaters who tell them, oh, you were this one, you were that one. And they think in their mind, this is called phantasmagoria. It's like taking LSD. You think something that's not. That's called sahaja. You see? Prabhupada clearly states here, although we want to join the party of the cowherd boys and eat with Krishna, but it requires great tapasya for many, many lives. You see? You cannot get this in 5 minutes. We want everything instant. Instant noodles, Maggi instant noodles, instant this, instant oatmeal, everything instant. No, this is not possible in spiritual life. There's a process, there's a purification, you see, and there's service involved. And it takes many lifetimes of tapasya to achieve these exalted positions, you see. What to speak in the material world, to become prime minister, to become president. Oh, it takes great tapasya. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. So the same in spiritual life, you see. So in every one of these quotes, there is nice instruction. But Tulsi Devi is not pleased by nice tunes of singing. Apparently somebody was singing nice tunes, but by nice devotion. So we should remember this when we sing to Tulsi Devi. She's not happy with nice tunes. She wants devotion. You see. Prabhupada. This one I read last week, but it's an important one, where Madhavisa says, you were talking about enviousness, Srila Prabhupada, and we see that this even sometimes pervades in our own society, Prabhupada. Because you are not yet perfect. That means you are not yet perfect. You are trying to be perfect. Now be perfect. And Madhavisa says, is there a way? Is there a specific way to counteract this bad quality of enviousness? And Prabhupada said, yes. Just chant Hare Krishna, cleanse your mind, and all dirty things will go. Because you neglect to chant regularly, therefore the dirty things remain. So if there's any disunity in our movement, it means we are not hearing or chanting properly. Because there should always be unity in diversity. Diversity means we're all individuals, but we have one mindset. Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada calls that unity in diversity. We all have different ways of serving Krishna. That is very good because we're individuals. But our unity is Krishna consciousness. And so therefore, whenever there's a question of whether we should do this way or that way, we immediately turn to the Shastra. We turn to the Acharya to find out which is the best way to serve Krishna and which is the way not to serve Krishna. And Prabhupada gave all the instructions in all of his books, 3,500 recordings, hundreds and volumes of books, you see, 6,500 letters, all based on questions and answers. So we have all the tools to continue this society for the next 100 years. We don't need to add or subtract. Everything is there. Prabhupada and one girl, the captain's wife. This is, Prabhupada was on his way on the Jaladuta. She studied astrology. She said, quote, "Swami, if you can survive your 70th year, then you'll live for 100 years, unquote." And Harisari laughs. So somehow or other I survived my 70th year. I do not know whether I shall live for 100 years, but 70th year was very severe. 3 heart attacks and paralysis. Yes, Prabhupada was paralyzed in his left side, and he was blind in his left eye when he got the stroke in 1967 in New York City. Plus he had 2 heart attacks on the ship, and they say the third is the worst one. You have side effects, you see. There are side effects, and so these side effects we have seen in our godbrother Jayapataka, where he had also stroke. He has side effect. But with a Prabhupada, it was different. You see? With Prabhupada, it was much different. This is a film that was taken 10 days after Prabhupada had his stroke. You see? And we sent him to the ocean to relax. Do you see any physical side effect from his stroke? He was blind and paralyzed? Nothing. All gone away. This is just 10 days after his stroke. We had to send him to the hospital, Beth Israel, where they wanted to experiment on his brain, Prabhupada said. I had to save him from the needle. You know, I was 18 years old then, and it was we had 24-hour watch on Prabhupada to make sure the doctors didn't do it. So it was my turn, and the lady came in, she said, "It's time for Prabhupada to have a test." And Prabhupada said, "No needle?" And the lady said, "No needle, don't worry." So they put Prabhupada on a gurney, which is a long table on wheels. And we went into the elevator, and I accompanied Prabhupada down to the cellar where they do the testing. You see? And we went into this room, and there was a cloth room separator. So everything appeared to be okay, but then all of a sudden a lady came out of this room with a needle this big. And Prabhupada looked, and he said, "No, take me back." So then I immediately put myself between Prabhupada and the nurse. And I said, "You're going to have to get through me first, because you're not going to put that in my spiritual master. I will lay down my life." And so immediately I told the nurse to go away because they wanted to experiment on his brain why so many young people were joining his movement. They thought he had special Shakti powers for brainwashing. And they wanted to experiment. Actually, Prabhupada said he is washing the brain. He admitted, yes, I am washing the brain. You see? He said that. I'm washing the brain. So, therefore, I went back up, but I was a stupid little boy then. I forgot what room we were where he was. So we had to find the room. I was pushing the gurney. It was on wheels, and Prabhupada was sitting up chanting on his beads. And he would look in each room to see which was his room. I knew the building was only 4 stories, so I knew it was somewhere on the 2nd or 3rd floor. So after a half hour, we found a room, and then Prabhupada told me to call Brahmananda and take him out of the hospital early the next morning. So we did that. Brahmananda came, and we took Prabhupada out, and the nurses and doctors all ran and said, "You're going to kill the old man if you leave." But Brahmananda didn't listen. Prabhupada wanted to leave, and we brought him instead to the seashore, where he fully recovered from being with the fresh air. It was in June. You could see he was wearing a coat, so from the winds it was a little bit cool then on the East Coast. You see, it's only in the low, like 22 or 21 there at this time of year, and at night it's even cooler. It was very breezy, fresh airs. And so Prabhupada stayed there for a while. So anyway, he completely recovered. And it shows how Krishna intervened because Krishna wanted Prabhupada to complete his mission. And Prabhupada admitted he had many heart attacks, many of them, during his time in the 70s. But he said it did not stop my work. That's how powerful Prabhupada's energy was. And that's why even in the newspapers, he was always described as a 74-year-old young man. He was never called an old man because he had the energy of a 25-year-old. You see? Because Krishna put that potency in him. So Prabhupada, he blessed all of his disciples to live for hundreds of years to carry on this movement. That is his mercy. Not only the ones who met him, but the ones who didn't meet him physically. They're also blessed to live hundreds of years to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So we should take that to heart and try our best to fulfill that prophecy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, envisioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, attempted by Bhaktisiddhanta, and actually completed by Srila Prabhupada. That's the Parampara. So thank you very much. If there's any questions, you can ask. There's the microphone. We'll have other topics. We meet here Tuesdays and Fridays at 6:30. And Sundays at 5:30. Yes.
I was hearing one of your god brother, Sannyasi, he was saying that the generation, like we second generation, we should not chant Prabhupada Pranam mantra. And practically he was saying, what does it mean? Like he meant to say, we don't have any right on Srila Prabhupada. Only his disciples have right. So after Mangala Arati, like Samsara Devana Guru Vastaka, he said, I get mad when I hear the devotees chanting Prabhupada Pranam mantra. And especially I get more mad when I see the young, like the second generation is chanting Prabhupada Pranam mantra. He said, what they have to do with that Prabhupada Pranam mantra? Like that. What do you think about this?
Well, he has poor fund of knowledge, that's all. He has a poor fund of knowledge. We should pray that he should advance in Krishna consciousness. A Vaishnava always prays for those who have poor fund of knowledge to advance in Krishna consciousness, so we should pray for him to advance so he gets the right fund of knowledge and not the poor fund of knowledge. It's unfortunate that he's not come to the level of Krishna conscious that he should be, so we pray for his advancement. That's what a Vaishnava thinks. Yes?
I would just like to humorously ask, you said one has to just live to inherit the father's property. So it's just a humorous question.
What's that?
One has to live to inherit the father's property.
One has to live?
Prabhupada said, to inherit father's property, to get the father's property.
I never said that. When did I say?
Prabhupada said, you said 3 points Prabhupada said, that one has to be submissive to the father, to inherit the property, he has to live.
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah, so no, I just have a humorous question. That did you inherit your father's property family?
No, I didn't get anything. I had a new father, my spiritual father. So my material father, he didn't give me anything, and I wasn't sorry for it. In fact, I was completely I don't even know where my father's buried. I have no interest in my animal birth. Prabhupada said the first birth is your animal birth. So why should I be interested in animal birth? I'm interested in my second birth, which is with the spiritual father. That's important because that liberates you from all births. Your animal birth, you don't get liberated. You get birth after birth after birth, and you don't know what you're going to be, a pig or a dog or a Chinaman that eats grasshoppers. Who knows what you'll be? But with the second birth, your twice-born birth father, you know you'll be free from birth, death, disease, and old age. So that's the father I'm interested in, not the animal birth.
Hare Krishna. During this conversation between Prabhupada and Goswami and Rameshwar, there is a passing reference that sex is for better purpose, should be. But is it not an impediment to Krishna consciousness? Because if you have sex for better purpose, that also is attachment, and attachment prevents from Krishna consciousness, Krishna's conscious movement. So what is to be done?
Yeah, Bhakti-Vinod, he had 10 children, they were all devotees. So why 10? Have 100 if you can make devotees. And his son became one of the greatest acharyas in India. He built 108 temples. Bhakti-Vinod. But all his sons were all devotees. So if you can produce 100 Vaishnavas, then have sex 100 times. There's no limit. If you can make good brains, you see, if you can make devotees who have brains, good brain substance, then have sex. Otherwise, stop the sex, because you're just producing cats and dogs. And that's what's happening now. You know, I see on the TV these refugee camps. They got like 100,000 people in Africa, and all I see is women and children. Where are the men? Where are the husbands? There aren't any, because they're just making babies, and they can't feed them. They're just having sex and producing cats and dogs and burdening the earth with all these cats and dogs. And that's why we have what's going on today, 60 million displaced persons due to war, famine, because there's too many cats and dogs all fight. What do cats and dogs, when you go outside and you go from one area to the next, the dogs come. They're protecting their property. So that's what the world has become. They come and bark at you. because they think this is my property. And then you go 10 feet more, and then there's another dog who has his property. So why should we produce such population that simply create barking wherever you go? Better stop the sex. You see? And make Krishna your husband. Make Krishna the source of your love. You see? That's better. Yes.
Your mother used to visit Prabhupada.
One time.
What did she think about this?
No, she came to fight. She came to fight with Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, we did something that made her stop. He ordered me and my brother to bow down at her feet. And then she was in shock, because in Western countries you don't bow down to your mother and father. And so when we did that, she stopped fighting. And then Prabhupada was very charming, as he always is, and he asked her, now that your sons are here, can you give a donation? And immediately she got angry. She said, I just gave you my 2 sons. And Prabhupada said, thank you very much. He tricked her. He didn't want any money. He wanted the sons. But he tricked her into saying, I just gave you my 2 sons, and now you want money? And Prabhupada said, thank you very much. So he tricked her. Very intelligent. He knew. You see, the sons are more important than money. Money will come from Krishna. He wanted the sons. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, there is this question. Sometimes people ask that is a narrator, and the narrator is being kept behind and thinking what gopi I am. So the question is, why do sometimes people keep a narrator behind and thinking about the gopi they are?
Because they're being taught this by the leaders. They write books on it. They write their books because they want to get a following. And people are interested in sex. So if they talk about this, they think it's ordinary dealings with boy and girl. Like all these guys who come here and give pravachan on Krishna, immediately they jump to the 10th canto to talk about, because they know people will come. But when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went to Radhakund, what did he preach on? Huh? Yeah, he spoke on Ishupanishad, and all the Babajis left because they want to hear about sex. He spoke on Ishupanishad because one who is a pure devotee knows that Krishna at the battlefield of Kurukshetra is just as equal to the Krishna who dances with the gopis or who's in Dwarka with his 16,000 wives. There's no difference. It's an equal level. But the Mayavadi Babajis, they only want to hear about Krishna with the gopis. They say, the Krishna in Kurukshetra, he's another Krishna. You see? Or he's the one in Dwarka, that's another Krishna. You see? So we don't follow that philosophy. According to our sampradaya, we say Krishna has different mellows and rasas with his different devotees in Dwarka, in Kurukshetra, and in Vrindavan, and Mathura. He has different rasas and mellows, and that's a science. So our desires is to become servants of those personalities who were the gopis or who were the wives, not to become them. That's Mayavadi. We become servants. You see, das anu das. Never we think we want to become these persons. We think we want to serve these persons. You see, that's our philosophy. So we follow this Gaudiya Sampradaya, so we have to stick to it and not add or subtract. Otherwise it'll be chaotic. So people who want adoration, the greatest sex for a sannyasi is to be adored, is adoration. So they're going to write something to make you adore them, or introduce something new so you adore them. So this is materialistic thinking. They're not advanced. Don't be fooled. There's the cheaters and the cheated. If you want to be cheated, then you go to the cheaters. If you want the real thing, you go to Srila Prabhupada. And he will not cheat you, rest assured. Take it from one who's with Prabhupada for 50 years. You won't be cheated. And you'll get the desired result. Simply by following his teachings and reading about his glorious Leela on this planet while he was with us for 11 years. Any other questions? Or comments? Something you don't understand?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Somebody recently asked me one question, that how old Krishna was when he left this material world.
Prabhupada said he never aged past 16 years old. Although he was present for 125 years, he never aged past 16. And the way he left was to delude the atheists. He actually didn't die. He disappeared, like the sun. Can you see the sun? No. Does that mean the sun died? No. The sun is still there, but you can't see it. The same with Krishna. When he appears and disappears, it's like the rising and setting of the sun. But the atheists, they think Krishna died. And he keeps the atheist as atheist. By doing that, he keeps them in illusion, because that's what this world is created for. It's for the convicts, to keep the convicts here. And Maya Devi is appointed to make sure the convicts don't elevate themselves to Krishna Loka. So even Maya would attack even the pure devotee on his trip on the ship. He said, I can't let this pure devotee come to America and liberate and bring people to Goloka, Vrindavan. I have to stop him. But Krishna came. You see, Krishna is greater than Maya Dev, and Krishna came. You see? And he massaged the heart of Prabhupada, because that is the only cure for heart attack. And then the captain said that in his 35 years on the Jaladuta, crossing the Atlantic in September, which is cyclone time, September, October, you get 40, maybe sometimes more, 50 cyclones. The average wave, because of all these storms, is 40 feet high. The average. And sometimes when the storms really come, they go up to 60 feet high, and then you get the rogue wave, which is 100 feet high. In 2015, there was a very small hurricane off the coast of South Carolina. And the ship looked just like the Jaladuta, loaded with cargo, and it sank, and everybody died. So that was the risk that Prabhupada took. He was going in the middle of the hurricane season. And when did he have his heart attack? In the Mediterranean, where the waves are 4 feet high. And that's why Srimati Maharaj did not want Prabhupada to go on that ship in September. He said, you will die in the Atlantic. That was her prediction. And I cannot be responsible for your death. But Prabhupada kept going and insisting. And finally she gave up and gave him the ticket. But she was worried that he would die from the waves. You see, but he got the heart attack in the Mediterranean, where there is no waves. They're 4 feet high. So the captain said in his 35 years of crossing the Atlantic in hurricane season or cyclone season, he never saw the Atlantic like glass. So I had this painting made by a Russian devotee named Satchidananda. Me and Brahmananda described to him the scene, and he put it to canvas and made an oil painting showing how the Jaladuta is crossing on an ocean of glass. And Prabhupada said, Krishna is rowing a boat in front of the Jaladuta and guiding it. So of course, when Krishna appears, he never comes himself. He comes with his entourage. He always appears with his entourage. All his incarnations appear. Everybody appears. And they were guiding the Jaladuta. And that's why Prabhupada didn't get his heart attack on the Atlantic, which would have been fatal. So this is the interaction of Krishna and his pure devotee. See? So we had a painting made of that, just to describe the glorious coming of the greatest acharya in the history of India. We know there's different sampradayas, Madhva, Ramanuja, Nimbarka, Shankaracharya, but they never crossed an ocean. Prabhupada's the only one. So he's the greatest acharya. He's greater than even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, he saved that for Prabhupada, that mission to cross the ocean. And that's admitted by Prabhupada here.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries. Why didn't he go there himself? That's what they told him.
So he left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu purposely left 500 years ago the mission to cross the ocean for Srila Prabhupada. That means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted Prabhupada's coming. It's predicted. You won't believe this, but it's also predicted in the Bhagavad-Gita. There's a verse in Bhagavad-Gita.
So the verse here. Now, this verse of Bhagavad-Gita is a secret to understanding the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and also Srila Prabhupada. And it's if Krishna 5,000 years ago predicted the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. How Prabhupada connects Bhagavad-Gita with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant.
And you can read that verse, chapter 6, verse 42, where Prabhupada mentions his name and Bhaktisiddhanta's name in the Bhagavad-Gita as being predicted to appear. This is written 5,000 years ago, and whatever the purport is as good as Krishna speaking, according to Srila Prabhupada. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Chaitamrita. When a pure devotee or spiritual master speaks, what he said should be accepted as having been directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Parampara system. So you can read that verse 6, text number 42 in Bhagavad-Gita, where Prabhupada is predicted and Bhaktisiddhanta is predicted to appear. How Prabhupada connects all of these personalities to Krishna 5,000 years ago, as Brahmananda said, is brilliant. And it takes great spiritual insight and understanding to do this. Only an acharya can do this. Ordinary humans cannot. Only one who's a Shaktavashavatar can do this. So that's why we're here 3 days a week to talk about the activities of the greatest acharya that ever existed on this planet. And you are part of that. You should feel proud. You see, that your life has been changed forever. You will experience the greatest life that you ever have, because you will be relieved of the most horrible future you can face, and that is birth, death, disease, and old age. Everyone in this room will go back to Godhead in this life, as promised by Srila Prabhupada. Just by reading his books. That's how potent the words of Krishna are. Anyone out of it says in Bhagavad, out of millions of men, only one. So we are the ones in this room and in other places who are performing devotional service. They will go back to Godhead. That is guaranteed. Rest assured. If you follow. Any other questions? Yes, speak in the mic.
Based on the question, just like last week Friday, you were speaking on homosexual.
Yes.
So several times you mentioned that you were once a sannyasi.
Yeah.
So of course today also you also mentioned something like that. So
no, there was one, the one devotee, he wasn't sannyasi, who Prabhupada said he was sorry that he became a homosexual, but he didn't reject him.
No, I'm proceeding on the question. So I like hearing from the horse's mouth. You said last week, was it Friday, that you were once a sannyasi. I don't know if it's possible why you dropped the status of sannyasi.
Why I did?
Why you dropped the status?
I said that when Prabhupada was leaving his body, I felt I wasn't qualified to be a sannyasi. First of all, in those days, you know, sannyasis were given some extra respect, and I never liked that. I thought that only Prabhupada should be given the respect. So I took my cloth off and my dundin threw it in the ocean because I didn't feel myself qualified. I accepted sannyas because my brother did. I was never ordered to take sannyas. Prabhupada gave me the choice that I could follow my brother or not. My brother was ordered to take sannyas, but I wasn't. So I thought for a day, because I was president in LA, you know, that was the most opulent temple. You know, we had 150 devotees. We were making $3,000 a day. If you add that up times 10, it's like $30,000 a day. This is back in 1968 and 69. So I had a very opulent life there. 150 devotees managing the world headquarters where Prabhupada, you know, was sitting. So should I leave or not leave? So I said, if my brother's being offered sannyas, there must be something better than what I'm doing. So I said, Prabhupada, I want to follow my brother and take sannyas. So that's what I did. And I never regretted it because Prabhupada had the sannyasis do the most difficult tasks For instance, he sent me to Pakistan during the Civil War, where there were bombs dropping, guns going on. They blew up the temple where I was staying. There's so many difficulties. And I never regretted that. But then when Prabhupada was leaving his body, this was about 2 months before, I had malaria also for a year and a half, and I finally hit the death fever. Do you know what the death fever is? When you get a fever 107 or more. So I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to go back to America, because India didn't have the proper medicines at that time. They didn't work back in the 70s. So at that time I thought in my own head that the sannyasis, there were certain GBC meetings with sannyasis, and I didn't like the way the future of ISKCON was going towards this Acharya type thing that happened in the 80s after Prabhupada left. So I didn't want to become part of this clique. And so I gave it up voluntarily. And I'm glad I did. So that's my personal reason why I gave it up. And sannyas is not a spiritual, it's not in the spiritual sky. There are no sannyasis. It's for the material world. So Prabhupada said, one who knows the science of Krishna, whether he's male, female, or whatever, Sudra, whatever, that is the important thing, not to be sannyas. So I didn't feel that I was meant for sannyas, so I gave it up. My brother gave it up about 4 years later also. And when I was physically with Prabhupada, I didn't feel that I had association every day. I would go into Prabhupada's room, and when Prabhupada left his body, I didn't feel I had that physical part to be with Prabhupada. So I wanted to become friendly and get married. So later on I got married. Otherwise, if Prabhupada was physically present, then I probably would. I was young then. I probably would have stayed sannyas. But then I feel now I'm more of a sannyasi than I was before. Being here in Vrindavan for 16 years, I haven't engaged in any sex life, although I am married. But we live as vanaprastha. So actually I feel in my heart I'm more sannyas. And I know more about Prabhupada than I ever did before by being in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is a very potent place. People don't realize how potent this place is. You have to be here for some time, because it's the best place to become Krishna conscious without any deviation from external things. There's outside of Vrindavan, you go anywhere else, there's Maya is very strong, it grabs you. Here, there's no, everybody's Krishna conscious. There's the policeman, the mailman, everybody. It's the best place to chant and the best place to study and reflect. That's why the Goswamis made their headquarters here. You see, so I feel the same way. I've been here for 16 years and I don't regret it, and I feel very good. And I didn't want to become a cheating Swami, because there were a lot of those. So I just gave it up voluntarily. So that answers your question? Okay. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol.